Welcome to Wise Flow, the place where your English grows and your mind wakes up. What if I told you that one man, born into unimaginable wealth and luxury, would one day become the most hunted face on earth? That his name would echo in fear across the world? That his beliefs, not just his actions, would shatter cities, fuel wars, and change history forever? This is not just a story about a terrorist. This is a deep dive into how a quiet, privileged boy from Saudi Arabia became the mastermind behind the deadliest attack in modern history. But it's also a lesson, a warning, a window into the mind of radical belief, and a powerful opportunity for you to learn English through real history. Because as we follow the rise and fall of Osama bin Laden, you won't just discover shocking truths. You'll improve your vocabulary, practice listening, and build confidence in English. So take a breath, focus your mind, because once this story begins, you won't forget it. From royal palaces to cave hideouts, from soft prayers to terrifying plans, this journey is filled with contradictions. A story that moved from faith to fanaticism, from silence to explosions, from luxury to legacy. But beneath it all, a single question remains. How does a man with everything turn into a man who chooses destruction? Let's begin. Part 1. The boy who walked away from luxury. He was born into a life most people can only dream of. Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, 1957. In a land of deserts and oil, where the rich lived like kings, a child was born into one of the wealthiest families in the kingdom. His name was Osama bin Laden. His father, Osama bin Laden, was no ordinary man. He was a self-made billionaire, a construction tycoon who helped build modern Saudi Arabia. Skyscrapers, palaces, highways, his company shaped the face of the nation. Because of this power and wealth, the bin Laden family was close to the royal family. They were trusted, respected, and untouchable. Osama was one of more than 50 children. His father had many wives, and the family was massive. But Osama stood out. From the outside, his life looked perfect. He had everything: private drivers, expensive clothes, beautiful homes, the best education money could buy, servants who brought him food, polished his shoes, and bowed when he entered the room. But inside, something else was growing. While other children laughed and played in swimming pools, Osama spent time alone, reading, thinking, and praying. He wasn't loud. He wasn't playful. He was serious, focused, quiet, and most of all, deeply religious. From a young age, Osama was taught that Islam was not just a religion, it was a way of life. He memorized the Quran. He prayed 5 times a day. He fasted, even when others didn't. He followed every rule, not because he had to, but because he believed it. And that belief in time became everything. A growing fire. In his teenage years, something inside him changed. He began to look around and ask, why are so many Muslims suffering? Why are there wars in Palestine? Why is the West, especially America, so powerful? Why do Muslim leaders bow to them? He saw the world in 2 parts, the pure and the corrupt, the faithful and the lost. And he felt called to be part of the fight, not for money, not for fame, but for what he believed was a divine purpose. This is the most shocking part of his story. He walked away from the wealth. He walked away from comfort. He left behind his royal connections, his billion-dollar name, and his life of ease, to enter a world of war, struggle, danger, and death. Why? Because he believed he was chosen. From mansions to mountains. In the late 1970s, when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, Osama saw it as a war against Islam. Most rich young men would stay far away. Osama went straight toward it. He took his inheritance, millions of dollars, and used it to fund fighters in Afghanistan. He didn't just send money. He went there himself, from five-star mansions, to cold, dirty caves, from silk sheets, to sleep on rocks. He wore the same clothes as the poor fighters. He ate what they ate. He fought beside them, prayed beside them, and bled beside them. The boy who had everything gave it all up. And in doing so, he gained something else: power, loyalty, influence, purpose, the making of a symbol. In the eyes of many young Muslims at the time, Osama became a symbol. He wasn't just a rich man. He was a rich man who gave up wealth for something bigger, for Islam, for justice, for the oppressed. But the path he chose would soon take a dark and dangerous turn, because belief, when mixed with anger, can become a weapon. And Osama bin Laden was just beginning to sharpen his. Part 2. The birth of Al-Qaeda. The war in Afghanistan was over. The year was 1989. After nearly a decade of brutal conflict, the mighty Soviet Union had finally retreated, defeated by a ragtag army of Afghan fighters and the foreign volunteers who came to help them. Among those volunteers was a man whose name was quietly beginning to echo across the Muslim world: Osama bin Laden. He was no longer just the quiet son of a Saudi billionaire. He was now a war veteran, a man who had faced death, seen blood, and survived the chaos of the battlefield. But something strange happened after the war. The world celebrated. The West, especially the United States, claimed victory. They had supported the Mujahideen, and now the evil empire had fallen. But Osama? He didn't celebrate. He felt something else, a burning question inside him. If we could defeat the Soviets, what's stopping us from defeating America? An idea begins to grow. In the caves and camps of Afghanistan, something had been growing quietly. Not just a resistance movement, but an ideology. It was more than just fighting for land. It was more than just defending Islam. It was a vision of a new world, a world where Muslim lands were free of Western influence, where Sharia law ruled, where Islamic unity returned, under a single banner. And now, with the Soviets gone, bin Laden saw a new enemy rising in his eyes: the United States of America. He believed the Americans were not just occupying lands with their military. They were occupying hearts and minds, spreading Western culture, values, and systems into Muslim countries, corrupting them, controlling them. The local rulers were being used as puppets. He believed Islam was under attack, not with bullets, but with business, with music, with media, with power. And so, he made a decision that would change the world forever: the founding of a network. In 1988, as the war was ending, Osama quietly began building something new, something dangerous, something that would outlive the battlefield. He called it Al-Qaeda. In Arabic, it means the base. It wasn't just an army. It wasn't just a group of fighters. It was a network, an idea, a system, a global movement. Al-Qaeda would train fighters, fund operations, spread propaganda, and carry out attacks, not just in war zones, but across the world. This was no longer just a battle of guns. It was a battle of ideology. Osama gathered former Mujahideen, young radicals, scholars, and soldiers, men who believed in one thing: that the entire Muslim world was being occupied, spiritually, politically, and economically. And that violent jihad was the only answer. He began organizing in secret, setting up camps, training volunteers from Egypt, Yemen, Algeria, Sudan, Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia, from all over the Muslim world. They came with fire in their eyes, ready to die, ready to kill, a global vision. Bin Laden's goal was not small. He didn't want to just fight one war. He wanted to reshape history. His plan? Drive out all Western forces from Muslim lands, overthrow puppet governments supported by the U.S. Unite Muslims under a single Islamic caliphate, and punish America for what he saw as crimes against the Muslim world. But how? Not through politics, not through speeches, through terror, through spectacle, through acts so shocking, the whole world would be forced to listen. And this was the terrifying genius of Al-Qaeda. It wasn't just about killing people. It was about making a statement, one that echoed across TV screens, newspapers, and minds. The goal was fear. The goal was chaos. The goal was attention. And Osama bin Laden knew exactly how to get it. A warning to the world. In the early 1990s, bin Laden moved to Sudan, where he was welcomed by a radical Islamist regime. From there, he built training camps. He smuggled weapons. He made deals with other terror groups. And in 1996, he released a declaration of war, not against a country, not against a military, but against the United States of America. He said, "The Americans have occupied our lands. They support Israel. They destroyed Iraq. They corrupt our youth. Every Muslim has to fight them." Most world leaders ignored him. They thought he was just another angry radical in the desert, but they didn't realize something. He wasn't shouting for attention. He was planning. And what he was planning would soon shake the entire world. Part 3. 9/11. The day the world stopped. It was a quiet morning. September 11th, 2001. The sun had just risen over New York City. The skies were clear. People were on their way to work. Children were heading to school. Planes were in the air like they were every day. No one knew that the world was about to change forever. 4 planes, 19 men, 1 plan. At exactly 8:46 a.m., the first plane struck. American Airlines Flight 11 smashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. People thought it was an accident, a tragedy. But then, 17 minutes later, a second plane, United Flight 175, hit the South Tower in full view of live TV cameras. The truth was now undeniable. This was not an accident. This was an attack. 2 more planes were still in the air. Flight 77 would crash into the Pentagon, the heart of America's military. Flight 93 was headed for either the White House or the Capitol. But brave passengers fought back. The plane crashed into a field in Pennsylvania. They died as heroes. The towers fall. Back in New York, smoke was filling the sky. People were jumping from windows. Sirens wailed. Dust choked the air. And then, at 9:59 a.m., something happened that no one believed could ever happen. The South Tower collapsed. A building over 100 stories tall crumbled into the earth in just 10 seconds. And then, at 10:28 a.m., the North Tower followed. In just over an hour, both towers of the World Trade Center were gone. The symbols of American power reduced to ash and steel. The world watches in shock. Almost 3,000 people died that day from more than 90 countries. Mothers, fathers, children, firefighters, office workers, pilots, passengers, Muslims, Christians, Jews, atheists. They didn't die in the war. They died at work on an ordinary day. The world watched in horror. TV screens across the planet replayed the images, planes hitting towers, people running, buildings collapsing. Time seemed to stop. It wasn't just an attack on America. It was an attack on the modern world. In peace, on safety, on everything people thought was normal. The question everyone asked, who did this? And soon the name echoed across every headline. Osama bin Laden, Al-Qaeda. This was the moment he had been planning for years. A strike so shocking, so loud, that the world would never forget his name. Bin Laden had chosen 4 planes, not tanks, not armies. He had used civilian airliners as weapons. He had turned America's system against itself. And he had done it with just 19 men. America responds. The United States was shaken, but not broken. President George W. Bush stood before the American people and said, "We will not tire, we will not falter, we will not fail." And then, the world changed. Airports became fortresses, surveillance increased, laws were rewritten, and just weeks later, the U.S. launched a full-scale invasion of Afghanistan, the country that had given bin Laden shelter. The goal, destroy Al-Qaeda, capture or kill Osama bin Laden, eliminate the Taliban regime that protected them. But it wasn't going to be that simple. A new era of fear. After 9/11, fear became part of daily life. Fear of flying, fear of terrorism, fear of the unknown. Muslims around the world faced hate, suspicion, and violence. The clash that bin Laden wanted between Islam and the West was starting to take shape in hearts and minds. And all of it began with one morning. 4 planes, 19 men, and a plan so cold, so calculated, that it froze the world in time. Part 4. The hunt for bin Laden. The towers had fallen. The dust had not yet settled. But the mission was clear. Find Osama bin Laden. Stop Al-Qaeda. Make sure 9/11 never happens again. The war on terror begins. Just 26 days after the attacks, the United States launched Operation Enduring Freedom, October 7, 2001. The skies over Afghanistan lit up with bombs and missiles. America was hunting ghosts. Al-Qaeda fighters are hidden in caves, mountains, and deserts. And at the center of it all, there was one man, Osama bin Laden. He had vanished. Tora Bora, the missed opportunity. In December 2001, U.S. forces believed bin Laden was hiding in the Tora Bora Mountains, a remote and rugged region near the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. Bunkers, caves, snow, silence. American planes dropped bombs day and night. Special forces moved in. But then, bin Laden disappeared, slipped through the mountains, crossed into Pakistan, gone like a shadow. Many would later say, "That was our chance. We had him, and we let him go." The search goes cold. For years, bin Laden became a phantom. No emails, no phone calls, no videos for months. Just tapes, old, grainy, smuggled through the shadows. The CIA searched everywhere. They followed whispers in villages, paid informants, tracked couriers. Every bearded man in a cave was suspected, and still, nothing. Some even believed he was dead. But behind the scenes, the net was slowly tightening. The courier, a key mistake. Bin Laden was careful, paranoid, no digital trail. But in the shadows, he made one mistake. He trusted a courier, a man who carried messages for him, always in person, never online. The CIA had a name, Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti. Years passed, but finally, they tracked him to a city in Pakistan. Abbottabad, not a mountain, not a desert, a calm military town with schools, traffic, and parks. And in the middle of it all, a strange house, the mysterious compound. It didn't look like a terrorist hideout. No phone lines, no internet. The walls are 18 feet high, barbed wire on the roof, windows blacked out. The CIA watched. A tall man appeared during prayer time. He never left, never showed his face clearly. Could it be him? They weren't 100% sure, but the pattern matched. The behavior matched. It had to be bin Laden, Operation Neptune Spear. The decision was made in secret, a small group in the White House. President Barack Obama gave the green light. We have a shot at him, but it's risky, no guarantees. May 2nd, 2011. Just past midnight, 2 Black Hawk helicopters slipped into Pakistani airspace. 23 Navy SEALs. Night vision? Silenced. They landed inside the compound. Explosions, gunfire, chaos. Within 40 minutes, it was over. And then the message came back. Geronimo Ika. Enemy killed in action. The death of bin Laden. They found him in an upstairs bedroom, unarmed, with one of his wives. 2 shots, 1 to the chest, 1 to the head. The man who brought terror to the world was dead. His body was flown to a U.S. ship. DNA confirmed the identity. And then, by Islamic tradition, he was buried at sea. The world reacts. News spread like wildfire. Americans cheered in the streets. Ground Zero is filled with people waving flags. Some cried, some smiled, all remembered. But this wasn't the end. Not even close. Because killing bin Laden didn't kill the ideas he had planted. It didn't stop terrorism. It didn't bring back the thousands who had died. It was a victory, yes, but it was also a reminder. One man can change the world, for better or worse, and sometimes it takes 10 years, 2 wars, thousands of lives, and the will of a nation to bring one man to justice. Part 5. What bin Laden really wanted. By now, the world knew his name. Osama bin Laden, the most wanted man on earth. But beneath the explosions, behind the bloodshed, beyond the horror of 9/11, was a bigger question. Why? Why did he do it? What did he want? Not just chaos, a strategy. Bin Laden wasn't just a madman with a gun. He was cold, calculated, a man with a plan, and that plan was terrifying in its simplicity. He believed America was a giant and powerful, but weak inside. Too soft, too rich, too divided. He wanted to provoke it, to force the U.S. to respond with rage, with war, and then to use those wars to bleed America dry. We will make them spend until they collapse. Bin Laden's own words. He had watched it happen before, with the Soviet Union in Afghanistan. He believed he could do the same for America. The real goal: global Islamic awakening. But bin Laden didn't just want to destroy. He wanted to build something. In his eyes, the Muslim world had been humiliated by colonialism, dictatorships, corruption, and Western influence. He wanted to wake it up, to unite Muslims under a single cause, a global jihad against the West. He dreamed of a new Islamic empire, a caliphate free from Western control, a place ruled not by democracy, but by strict Sharia law. And he believed the only way to achieve that was through violence, shock, and fear. Media as a weapon. Bin Laden didn't just fight with bullets. He fought with images, with videos, with words. He knew that every attack would be shown on television. That fear would spread faster than fire. He wanted the world to see the smoke, to hear the screams, to watch America suffer in real time. Terror was not just his method. It was his message. Divide and conquer. Bin Laden's other goal was to divide the world. He wanted to make Muslims feel attacked by the West. He wanted Americans to fear every Muslim. He wanted Christians, Jews, and Muslims to turn against each other. Because a divided world is easier to control, easier to manipulate, easier to burn. And slowly, it began to work. Wars began, trust broke, hate rose. And in the smoke of it all, bin Laden smiled. Even in death, his ideas lived on. The true weapon was not the bomb, but the idea. You can kill a man. You can destroy his body. But can you destroy a belief? That's the real danger of bin Laden's legacy. He planted a seed, not just in the deserts of Afghanistan, but in the hearts of angry, lost, and broken people across the world, people who felt invisible, who felt powerless, who wanted revenge. And for them, bin Laden wasn't a terrorist, he was a symbol, a warrior, a voice, a war that can't be won with guns alone. Bin Laden forced the world to fight a new kind of war, a war of ideas, a war of belief, of identity, of values. He wanted the West to become more afraid, more divided, and more suspicious. He wanted the Muslim world to feel victimized, angry, and hopeless, and in many ways, he succeeded. But here's the truth. He never understood. You can't build a future on fear. You can't unite the world by burning it down. His vision was built on violence, and violence always destroys itself. So what did bin Laden want? He wanted fear, he wanted chaos, he wanted war. And most of all, he wanted to shape the future of the world by breaking it first. But the world is still here, broken, yes, scarred, but still standing, and that is something he could never defeat. Part 6. Legacy and Lessons. The smoke has cleared, the leaders are gone, the headlines have faded, but the scars remain. From the mountains of Afghanistan to the cities of Europe, from the deserts of Iraq to the hearts of millions. The war on terror changed the world forever. And now, 2 decades later, we are left with one haunting question. What was it all for? The human cost. Over 1 million lives lost, countless more wounded, physically and mentally. Soldiers returned with broken bodies. Civilians never returned at all. Entire generations grew up in rubble, in fear, in trauma. Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Yemen. The war on terror didn't just kill terrorists, it tore apart entire countries. And the price? Over $8 trillion spent. The mirage of victory. Yes, bin Laden was killed. Yes, ISIS lost its territory. Yes, many plots were stopped. But terrorism didn't disappear. It evolved. It went online. It went global. It went into the hearts of angry, isolated people who no longer needed training camps to become killers. A van, a knife, a video camera, that's all it takes now. And the fear, it never left. The true lessons. So what did we learn? 1. Killing leaders is not enough. You can kill a man, but not an idea. Bin Laden is gone, but others have taken his place, and they will keep coming unless the roots of extremism are addressed. 2. Injustice breeds extremism, where there is no dignity, no education, no future. Hatred finds a home. Bombs can destroy buildings, but only hope can rebuild minds. 3. Freedom cannot be forced. Democracy isn't a drone strike. You can't build nations with bullets. What takes generations to grow cannot be imposed overnight. 4th, propaganda is a powerful weapon. ISIS used Twitter better than any army. They recruited with stories, not just slogans. And they understood one truth. In the modern world, ideas go viral faster than bullets fly. The moral mirror. But perhaps the deepest lesson is about us. What did the war on terror do to the world's values? We saw torture, secret prisons, drone strikes on weddings. Children are labeled as collateral damage. The war that began in the name of justice, sometimes it loses its own sense of itself. The line between defender and aggressor, blurred. The psychological war. And it wasn't just a war out there. It was a war within. Fear became normal. Airports became fortresses. Neighbors became suspects. Whole communities were treated as guilty because of their faith or name. This war didn't just change policies. It changed people. A generation shaped by fire. There is now an entire generation, from Kabul to Kansas, that grew up in the shadow of September 11th, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and endless war. They learned to live with uncertainty, to question everything, to search for truth in a world full of lies. And maybe that's the final legacy, a generation that saw the cost of hate, that learned peace isn't just the absence of war, but the presence of justice, dignity, and understanding. The road ahead. The war may be over on paper, but the work is not. Because the real battle, it is not in the deserts of the Middle East. It's in classrooms, in conversations, in policies, in hearts. The future depends on what we do now, whether we repeat the cycle or rise above it. Final reflection. Osama bin Laden thought he could break the world, and in some ways, he did. But from the ruins, new voices are rising. Voices that say, we will not let hate define us. We will not build peace with bombs. We will not forget, but we will learn. Because history is not just what happened, it's what we choose to remember and what we choose to build from those memories. Outro. The story is not over. You've just taken a journey through one of the most powerful and painful chapters in modern history. But this story, it is not just about war, terror, or politics. It's about people. It's about choices. And it's about the power of knowledge. Because the more we understand the past, the better we can shape the future. If you're learning English, this journey wasn't only about listening. It was about thinking deeply in English, feeling the emotion behind every word, and using real stories to grow your vocabulary, your fluency, and your global awareness. So ask yourself, what did I feel during this story? What new words or ideas did I learn, and what kind of world do I want to help build? If this video made you think, if it helped you feel, if it inspired you to learn, then don't stop here. Like this video to support more deep, immersive English content. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another story like this. Share this video with someone who needs to understand this part of history in English. And most importantly, keep speaking, keep thinking, keep learning. Because every new word you learn, every new story you understand, brings you closer to the world and brings the world closer to you. This is Wise Flow, where language meets meaning, where stories change minds, and where you grow stronger with every word. See you in the next chapter. Stay curious, stay brave, and stay wise.